Today I'm going to show you how to build a basic Excel report using pivot tables, PowerQuery and basic data tables in Excel. To get started, we're going to load our data tables into PowerQuery. We can do this one at a time by using the data menu and clicking within each individual table and using the from table and range. However, I have 4 tables that I want to take in. I'm going to go to get data from Excel workbook. And I'm going to find the file path that my files are saved in. Once I've found that, I will then be able to select each of the tables that I've named within my Excel file. I'm going to select multiple, and I'm going to select each of my tables. You'll notice I've put TBL underscore at the front of each table so easily identify which one is which. This is the name of the sheet. This is the name of the table that I've named, which is the blue table in Excel. Once I hit transform data, I'll then be able to manipulate each accordingly. Now before I do anything, I'm going to load them, close and load them into a connection, and I'm going to load them into the data model. Loading it into a connection allows me to not duplicate the tables within my Excel file, but also allow me to flexibly edit the queries in the background, which are then automatically loaded into the data model. So you'll see that they're loading. It'll take about 20 seconds because they're quite small. I'm just going to hit save. What I'm going to do now is edit my tables to get a bit more value out of them. So I'm going to add a column. PowerQuery is great because it can do multiple transformations. We will go through some of them during this video. I'm going to add a few basic filters that I can apply. I'm going to add the end of the month. I'm going to add the name of the month. I'm going to add the month. And I'm going to add a quarter of the year. That should be enough to keep us going for a little while. I've also got a customer table, which looks pretty good. I've got a product table and a transactions table. You can see I've 999 rows as a minimum. That's just the preview that Excel gives you. I'm going to close and load. Give that a second. You can see that the dates table is the only one that I changed, but nothing here is visibly different. Once I go to manage data model, I can then see each of my tables, and I can see the changes that I've made. One really cool thing about this data model, or PowerPivot, in Excel, is the ability to draw relationships between existing tables. So I'm going to draw some relationships between my dates table and my transactions table, my product table, and my customer table. These relationships will now allow me to utilize data from each of these tables and include them as part of calculations that I am doing from the transactions table. I'm just going to hit save and go into my data view. Now within the transactions table, this is where it starts to get quite useful. I'm just going to change this format because I don't like having the time there. It's not really relevant for what we're doing. I'm going to add my selling price from my products table into my transactions table. To do this, I'm using a function called related, which utilizes the relationship that we just built between our transactions table and our products table. So I start typing product. I can see all the 4 columns in the product table that I can bring over. I'm going to bring over my selling price. And there we go. This is the selling price that is listed in the product table. I'm also going to do the same thing for the cost price. Related cost price. I'm just hitting tab and enter to complete typing the formula, and then enter to automatically put the bracket at the end of it. Now I could also just do it's a calculation I'm looking to do. So my quantity solved, which is my end goal, in that column. So you don't have too many columns, but I'm demonstrating that you can pull other information into this table if you need to. You'll notice I'm not pulling the name or the customer name or the product name into this table because it's not really relevant. For the sake of this table, I'm trying to streamline my information as much as possible. What we will be able to do though, once we load this into our data model and start reporting by pivot tables, is we can drag the product name accordingly into a pivot table and report on it without it having been here. Because we've got that link with our product ID and customer ID respectively, we can do that. I'm just going to add a quick couple of calculations. So I'm going to do sales. This is where I'll do my calculation of quantity sold times my selling price. I'm also going to do another one, which is total cost of sold. Do one more for net profit, or it could be net margin, however you want to look at it. I will do my gross sales less my total cost. Now I'm just going to format each to have one decimal point using the formatting tool up top. Cool. I think that's good enough for what I'm looking to demonstrate. I'm going to hit save. I'm going to hit close. And now I'm going to build a report off of it. To build a report off it using a pivot table, I'm going to go to Insert, Pivot Tables, but instead of clicking on the top, click on this drop down arrow and go From Data Model. I'm going to add it on a new worksheet and I'm going to click OK. You'll see on the right hand side, I've now got a whole bunch of fields. These are all of my fields. Once I start selecting the fields that I want to drag into my pivot table, I'll then have only the active ones that I can then report against. So from my transactions table, I'm going to bring in my quantity. I'm going to bring in my gross sales. From my dates table, I'm going to bring in the year and the month name. From my products table, you'll see now, without that name existing in my transactions, I will bring in my product name and it's automatically listed it here for me. And I will also bring in my customer name. And now I can see that. Now this doesn't really look very good. So from a usability standpoint, I'm going to change this around a little bit. I'm going to get rid of my quantity sold for now. Now you'll notice that both of these are named exactly the same. To change that, go to Data, Data Query, edit my query, and within the product table, let's change this to product name, and within customer, I will go with customer name. One other thing I want is a short month name. Instead of trying to figure out how to do it via an automatic column, I'm just going to take my month name column, add a column, and have the first 3 characters of the month name field added. I'm then going to double click here, short month, close and load. Just let that load through. You'll see the customer table load for a few seconds, so the dates table and the product table because of the name changes we made. Here I can flick between queries and connections, which are the Power Queries that we've built, and the pivot table. So now you can see my customer name exists. I'm going to drag that in, and automatically we have that. So that's setting up a basic table. this kind of view doesn't really give us much appreciation for the information that we're looking at. So I'm going to go and set up a couple of views that give us a better indication of what our data looks like. So by year, I'm going to drag this down. I'm then going to reorder these. Now I could manually reorder them, or I could use the month number at the start and then simply hide that row. I go up here and hide. Now I can see my total as well. So you can see sales to date. Now this 0 doesn't really do anything for me, so I'm just going to remove that by filtering it, by changing the formatting. Now this is my gross sales data by year, by month. I then want to see that exact same data, but instead of by year, I'm going to add my customer name. Now what I want to do with my customer name is maybe arrange it a little bit differently. I will want to see subtotals by year, so I can add a subtotal at that level by right-clicking my year and adding a subtotal, which looks quite good. What I might also want to do though is add my year down below to then actually see each of my customers by year. Now that's not really ideal if we're trying to compare David Kim across the 3 years. So I can change the order of them, and that will now give me an annualized view per customer, which is a lot cleaner for what I'm looking to do. Now, gross sales is great, but I think I would want to look at profit instead. So I'm just going to remove that and add my profit value here. So now that looks a little better. I'm going to do the same thing, copy it, paste it below, and I'm going to add my product name instead of my customer name. I can see which products were the most profitable in absolute dollars across the period of time that I'm looking at. This is quite a lengthy report as it is, so it may be worth moving these around to make it more user-friendly. I'm just going to hide both of these rows. And now I can see the summary of my data by product, customer, and by year. I'm going to rename this to pivot summary. One pro tip is just to make sure that when you've built these pivot tables is to deselect the auto fit column widths on update. That way, if the values expand and contract, you won't get hash errors when the data refreshes. So you can see I can read all of my information. We are good to go. The next thing we're going to do is add in some pivot charts. Now these will be referencing our data live, so they'll automatically update when we refresh our data. They'll expand and contract accordingly, depending on the filters that we have applied. So to do that, we're going to go back to our Insert tab, but instead of Pivot Table, we're going to go Pivot Chart and add a pivot chart. I'm going to use the workbook's data model, and I'm going to add a new worksheet. I will now add some fields to my data from my pivot charts area. I will add a quick month field. I will add a net profit field, and I will add my year. Let's keep it really straightforward. And I know that's what's ordered correctly. So now I can see that it's ordered from Jan 2021 all the way down. It will cover the latest date period that I've got. I'm going to remove my grid lines. I'm also going to change the way it looks. So under your design tab, open this little drop down and you can kind of highlight how you want your reports to look. I think that one looks quite cool, but I am going to remove my grid lines from it. I'm also going to add some data labels to it. So let's go to my options. I will remove that. Now you'll notice that the format of each of these appears to be following the format of the data itself. So if I want to change that, I can go into my data model. So under PowerPivot, manage my model. I'm going to go transactions, and I'm going to change this to no decimal point. Save that, close it, and then you'll see my formatting has fixed itself. Next, what I'm going to do is create a copy of this so I can look at my data by customer. I'm going to add my customer name here and remove my time period. Now that kind of visual is less relevant for what I'm doing, so I'm actually going to change that to a pie chart. I like that design. Now I've got absolute numbers in here. And I'm going to add a data call out. That way I can see the percentage mix of each of those customers over that period of time. I'm going to remove the legend because they are included there. I'm going to fix this chart title to be customer mix percentage. That doesn't need to be that big. I'm going to resize it just so it looks a bit better. Now, because I quite like that chart, I'm going to copy it, paste it, and I'm going to add my product name instead of my customer name. Now I'm going to choose the most appropriate for my product mix, as this doesn't really look that great. I'm going to change the name of it quickly. Product mix. I think a nice simple bar chart will do what I'm after. Okay, that looks okay. I'm going to edit my data labels. Label options. I'm going to remove the category name. Remove my grid lines. Okay, I am going to remove the horizontal axis because it was just making it a bit messy. Got my product mix and I've got my data showing there. Now I'm going to add a quick filter to my page just so I can give my report some context. I'm going to add a filter by year in the form of a slicer. I'm going to just visually change that to a grey. So for the year of 2021, you'll notice that it's only changing the product mix table. To change that, I go to right click on it, report connections. Under my charts sheet, I'm going to select all three charts, these three here. And now I can filter it accordingly. So in 2023 so far, the month of June was my most profitable. Product is my Pixel 7 Pro. And in terms of mix, John Doe has bought the most. That's a really quick video into using Excel to optimize your reporting. If you'd like to download a copy of the Excel file that I was using, go to the Gumroad link in the description below and you can download it for free. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.